Hi, this is Jerry from Fight Commentary Breakdowns here. Some of you might know the original video on this got a copyright claim. Sometimes it's a blessing in disguise because I realize maybe I can make this discussion even better. I can analyze even more footage. I will present you 2 more case studies of this. But first, here's the one from Ultimate Self-Defense Championship. So one thing to notice is he does have knee pads, right? And he does have head shield. How much does that factor into all this? But the other thing to notice immediately is that the knife attacker is actually having some trouble getting a grip on one of the ankles or the legs, you see. So this is something very surprising that I noticed. So in this one, you're going to see Coach Jordan here, go with much more aggression. See, he's going to try to kick a lot more, right? So lots more chopping kicks, up kicks, etc. And he actually is keeping him at bay, but he's also giving his legs a little bit more opportunity to get slashed, right? And then they get tangled here. Obviously, he probably could have disengaged and ran there. This time, what happens if you have a little bit of a barrier, right? Like a small barrier. And see, it's not enough to stop him. Now, Jordan takes him down already. He's kind of gotten cut a few times. In fact, I think some of those cuts were already lethal. So he's trying to do some wrestling, a jiu-jitsu guy's version of wrestling. Now there he could have disengaged, right? If this were not a tank, he could have just ran away. This was my favorite part. This was a big barrier and it could have been more solid, but you can see, look at that, right? It's mostly negating the range of the knife. Now, unfortunately, it could get picked up, right? So I wish it would weighed more. And here he messes up. He takes it, so he didn't survive that. But before, when he was really properly placing that barrier, he was doing very, very well. So this was probably one of the most enlightening tests, for my opinion, watching this. So this is the last round for the test. And notice this is a different type of attacker, right? It's almost like at first he wanted to just rob, but then it kind of escalates. And look at that, he actually kicks the knife out of his hand. He goes for the armbar immediately, but maybe he should have brushed the knife away. I think because of the direction he armbarred him, he didn't have to sort of use one of his hands and quickly push the knife away. But that's something always to keep in mind, right? The guy could still grab his knife that got kicked out and try something, but it worked out in this case for Jordan. So next up, this is something I saw from Tyler Spangler. And I'll show you a segment that really changed my perspective. Check out what happens. So look at what happens once he pins the arm against the cage, right? So if you have a vertical little surface that you can use to both limit his body's movement and his knife arm movement, then it could work. Now you might wonder, why can't he get the knife out of the hand? Let's hear it from his own words.
And if you didn't know, when somebody has a closed fist over an object, it is very hard to pry their hands open and take it from them. I would have loved to have taken his weapon so I could slay him against the cage, but he shifts the blade to his other hand and now I have to re-establish all my grip fights all over again.
These are just things you don't think about until you see it. Any of you who are parents know when you're trying to get something out of a kid's hand that he doesn't want to give to you, right? It's the same thing. It's the same grip when they're holding a knife. Or even brothers, people that have ever played with people. Either someone's trying to get something out of your hand or you're trying to get something out of their hand. When they really want to hold it, you're not getting it out of their hand, right? And this shows a funny thing that we forget from childhood applied to knife defense. By the way, shout out Tyler. Make sure to go follow him. Now, the final case study I want to show you guys was from this channel called UF Pro. They tested also bare hands against knife. My favorite result was what happened when the person with bare hands had to back into a wall. Now you don't have anywhere to back up, but having a hard surface behind you gives you different angles and different ways to push off. And that's how the defender won that exchange. So watch this. See? Very explosive, right? He's able to control the hand, and we'll watch it in slow motion. Watch what happens. So he goes for it, right? Watch him take the blade, right? Fake blade YouTube. This is fake blade YouTube. And then watch what happens. He's able to control that arm, and notice now the whole wall is working against the knife-wielding attacker, right? Now, a limitation of this one, of course, is you could argue maybe the attacker should have tried this way too, right? He was going overhand. I don't remember if they had a similar situation with this plus against a wall. But I think this example is promising, and I hope someone, whether a viewer or a gym, safely tests this and gives us more data. Everyone in LA, hang in there. I hope everyone watching liked this extended look. We saw someone on the ground trying to control and trying to strike. We saw an example of trying to pin the knife arm against the cage or against any sort of vertical type of barrier. And then we saw what happens and potentially how you could use a physical barrier behind you to find angles and find leverage. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to think about. So this is just the beginning. My ankle's improving. And once it gets to the point where I can test some of this stuff, I really want to test the thing I said where maybe there's a way to kick but protect your femoral artery at the same time with your hands or your arm or something. I don't know. So we'll have to follow this up soon. So anyways, guys, become a channel member, please. That really helps. If you like the vibe of this video, send it to one of your friends who might like this. Every time I hear of a viewer that some other friend of theirs sent them a video of mine that makes me happy, I'll give shout outs, okay? Shout out viewer Dario, by the way. Dario, my judoka viewer. Judokas, if you have any thoughts on this, maybe if you can just throw the knife-wielding attacker, right? That's the solution. So judokas, chime in. Okay, again, shout out viewer Dario.